It's April 9th, JLD here, and welcome to MSTR Today. In this show, we talk about no tariffs on Bitcoin. We talk about Bitcoin Treasury strategies, what they're doing. We talk about diversification, and of course, the nation states are coming. We also have two great video clips from Michael Saylor. And this video is not financial advice, but please do comment below, comment for support, comment on where you're watching from, any questions you might have, and let's dive on in. Okay, today's first post is from the Bitcoin therapist who says you can't put tariffs on Bitcoin. And I just love this Norman Rockwell take on Michael Saylor just standing up and basically saying, hey, you can't put tariffs on Bitcoin. You cannot put tariffs on Bitcoin, the apex predator. And Chris wants us to know that, hey, MSTR is a $1,000 per share stock. He believes it. I believe it's inevitable. And he has this great graphic that I love for people that remember the Nintendo Entertainment System. I can remember back in 1987, my sister and I got home from school and my parents had it waiting for us on the couch. Like I can still picture it just sitting there. It was such an amazing moment. I was so excited for it. I was one of my last friends to get it. So it was like finally we have it. And man, it was such a good experience. And hey, for anybody that remembers the old Nintendo Entertainment System, sometimes you just got to take out the cartridge, blow on it a little bit, kind of shake it around, kind of snug it in tight, and then press that power button again. Because like I said at the beginning of this, Chris believes MSTR is $1,000 share. It's inevitable. And that's just, a stop on the way higher. I believe it's inevitable. And I think a lot of us just have a lot better time if we just put our mindset there and just let this volatility kind of happen, knowing it's going to get there. It's just a matter of when. That's my opinion. I believe it's inevitable, as does Chris, as do others. Let's go. And the Strategy Archive wants us to know that Bitcoin Treasury strategies will evolve beyond simple accumulation. The future, using Bitcoin as collateral for acquisitions, expansion into specialized markets like reinsurance, and potentially shifting to a Bitcoin standard for operational decisions. Companies with strong cash flow but uncertain growth paths can buy time while building war chests of appreciating assets. GameStop, Nike, and Robinhood stand out as potential adopters, but success requires disciplined leverage management and non-recourse debt. The Bitcoin Treasury approach isn't just replacing cash, it's reimagining what a corporation can be in the digital age. And there you have MicroStrategy/strategy at the top with 528,000. The second best is Marathon at 46,000. But that's a mining company. So really Riot Platforms is the next one in line here with 18,000. So we're talking, the second place right here, Marathon, is 10x less than Strategy. And as Michael Saylor says, hey, there is no second best, and it shows here. Although the great thing about Bitcoin Treasury Companies, we're all on the same team. We're all on the same team of accumulating Bitcoin, driving up the scarcity, driving down the supply, driving up the demands. This is what is happening. Game theory in action. Chris says Strategy is a pre-$10 trillion company. Chris believes that's inevitable. I believe that's inevitable. Sometimes it's hard to believe when these macro, short-term things are happening with the tariff scares and the global and the bond rate rise. I mean, all these things. And there's always going to be noise out there. And noted that this is more noise than usual, for sure. But listen, this too shall pass. We need to be saying that, by the way, on both sides of the equation. When we're down in the dumps and it looks like there's nothing that's going to help us recover from this too shall pass. And also on the other flip side of things, when the stock is just flying high and crushing all expectations, this too shall pass. That will pass as well, because nothing is going up and to the right forever. There will always be spikes up, spikes down, spikes up, spikes down. But we know where we're going if you're Chris and myself. $10 trillion company. Book it. Our opinions. Ben Workman says, for what it's worth, max global chaos might be the U.S. announcing a substantial Bitcoin purchase. I mean, why not? Got to try something, right? And, Ben, again, he just brings great levity to the situation. He comes in here and he just shares what is the possibility and the possible truth. There's a great post by Adam Livingston here. He wants us to know that, in his opinion, diversification is stupid. Just buy MSTR. Diversify your portfolio, screams JP Morgan, while lighting your retirement plan on fire. Let's break this down like your financial future depends on it, because it does. JP Morgan's idea of safety: 5% in bonds, which are melting faster than your will to live; 10% in international equities. Ever heard of Venezuela? 15% in alternative assets. Translation: a guy named Chad selling you a timeshare in the metaverse. Then there's Saylor. He walks in with 528,000 Bitcoin and says, put everything on black. And by black, I mean the mathematically finite thermodynamic apex of capital. While Wall Street diversifies you straight into poverty, Saylor concentrates his capital like a Death Star focusing its beam. Why does Papa Saylor do this? Because he understands one thing Wall Street doesn't want to admit: diversification is a hedge against conviction. And guess what? Conviction has a higher Sharpe ratio than your financial advisor's entire LinkedIn resume. MSTR isn't risky. It's a company turned into a Bitcoin time lock protocol, publicly traded on the NASDAQ for your convenience. So here's the choice: JP Morgan. Here's 30 pages of asset allocation theory. Don't worry, we'll rebalance it quarterly while charging you 1.5% to suck at the preserving value. Saylor says, here's a leveraged BTC vault. We back tested it against fiat. Fiat died. If you're still diversifying in 2025, you're not investing. You're cosplaying as someone who understands money. Bitcoin is inevitable. Buy the Strategy Bitcoin Bank. And maybe Michael Saylor will give you a nice little frap with a cherry on top. Okay, moving on to the next post by Adam. He says $237 share price, 1.8 MNAV. The stock was trading higher last year when it had half as much Bitcoin. Literally, I was buying MSTR when MSTR had like 145,000 total Bitcoin. There's almost 400,000 more Bitcoin in its coffers, and now it's trading at a similar price point. Generational buying opportunity right here. Fortune favors the bold. And yes, this chart is and looks brutal. I bought about right there yesterday. I'll be sharing with you my buy at the end of the episode here. It wasn't pretty. The Bitcoin therapist says, imagine if nation states start bidding us up to $1 million per share per Bitcoin. Is it really that hard to believe that Bitcoin is going to $1 million? Well, in my mind, it's absolutely inevitable. But that's my opinion, and we welcome yours. Now, I have two great video clips from Michael Saylor as soon as we get back from thanking our sponsors. How is it that some businesses just nail it when it comes to marketing and selling products? Think about brands like Heinz or Allbirds. Well, the truth is, an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling, and for shoppers, buying simple. And for millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet, and they also have a not so secret, Shop Pay, which boosts conversions up to 50%. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Want to grow your business? Then your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Just remember, businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Heinz and Allbirds use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/MSTR, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/MSTR to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/MSTR. So check it out. I know we're all looking to stack more Bitcoin and MSTR, and to do that, we need more fiat. So let's chat about our sponsor, ShipStation. We all know the market can seem pretty chaotic at times, but if you're in charge of order fulfillment for your business, you already understand chaos. While we might not be able to help calm the chaos in the market, ShipStation is here to help when it comes to shipping and fulfillment. I've used ShipStation to easily automate shipping to customers around the globe. My favorite part about the platform, managing orders in one simple dashboard makes an otherwise massive task feel pretty darn simple. Plus, ShipStation not only integrates with the services and selling channels you already use, it's also the fastest, most affordable way to ship products to your customers. ShipStation hooks you up with discounts up to 88% off UPS, DHL Express, and USPS rates, and up to 90% off FedEx rates. Calm the chaos of order fulfillment with the shipping software that delivers. Switch to ShipStation today. Go to shipstation.com/MSTR to sign up for your free trial, or click the pinned comment below this video. That's shipstation.com/MSTR. And thank you for supporting our sponsors that allow myself and my team to continue to produce these daily videos for you for free. Now back to the show.
I think that if you go to digital currency, the real point is an issuer, a corporation, whether it's Circle or Tether or a bank, ought to be able to issue a digital asset that's backed by currency. So if I want to sell $1 billion of digital stable coin, I ought to have $1 billion worth of currency in a bank. It ought to be one for one backed, right? And that's not the same as a stable coin. Like, it's not UST backed by Luna, right? It's not, that would be a token, by the way, right? If you create a token which you purport to be stable at $1, I mean, okay, you're kind of a fool to trust it. But if I create a digital currency, then I issue $10 billion and I buy $10 billion of treasuries, and it ought to be sort of a regulated entity. And the issuer ought to be liable to the government and ought to be liable to the buyer for fraud, right? And that's kind of very straightforward. But then the digital currency ought to circulate friction-free at the speed of light. And the benefit of that is that the stablecoin industry will go from 50 billion in the US to 10 trillion. And we will export $10 trillion worth of US dollars to the rest of the world. And probably everybody in Africa and everybody in Asia will start using the dollars. Maybe the Europeans will flip to the dollar, right? It would be great for the world's reserve currency. And so, and it would be great for the 8 billion people on the planet that have to use a defective currency as a medium of exchange or a short-term store of value.
So if the digital economy relies on stablecoins, why do we need Bitcoin? Where does, I know you're the master of the Bitcoin reserve strategy, so tell me where that enters the picture.
Yeah, because if you think about money, money decomposes into currency and capital. So if you live in Argentina and by law you're required to pay your tax bill in pesos, you're going to need ARS. You're going to need local currency. And if the currency is losing 20, 30, 40% of its value a year, then you would hold that for 4 weeks. Then if you needed money for the next 4 weeks to 4 years, call that midterm money, you'd probably want to buy the dollar. So you would have in your checking account USD. You wouldn't hold Bolivar, you wouldn't hold Naira, you wouldn't hold any of the really weak collapsing currencies. You wouldn't hold any Syrian or Afghan or Iraqi currency. So in that case, you always want to hold the US dollar. But if you need to hold the money from 4 years to 400 years, there is no institution or wealthy individual that would ever claim that the majority of their assets are held in dollars or pesos. They're holding capital assets. And those capital assets are split between 3 things. They're either holding bonds. You might be holding corporate bonds. You might be holding treasury bonds. Or they're holding real estate. You're probably owning a building or property or a home or some other tangible physical asset. Or you're holding private equity. I own a company. Or public equity. I have a portfolio of Magnificent Seven stocks or S&P index or something. So think about all the wealthiest people in the world: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. What percentage of their wealth is US dollars? It's not even 1%, right? So Bitcoin doesn't compete with the dollar. Bitcoin competes with capital assets in the world. Truth number 7. That makes Bitcoin a commodity. What is a commodity? An asset without an issuer. Gold's a commodity. Corn is a commodity. Lumber is a commodity. Why is this important? Because in law, commodities have a special status. A company in the United States can be capitalized on commodities. It cannot be capitalized on securities. There's actually a special carve-out in corporate law for publicly traded companies. But maybe more importantly, I can stand here and I can tell you that I think the price of Bitcoin will go to 13 million over 20 years. I couldn't say that about a security, right? You have legal immunity to actually express your opinion about a commodity. That makes commodities politically superior, legally superior, ethically superior, financially superior to a non-commodity, to a security. And it's not just a little bit better, it's 100 times better, right? And so Bitcoin is a commodity. Bitcoin is actually the commodity. I studied commodities in my early professional years. Every other commodity can be created with technology, with capital, with know-how. If you were going to take your family's life savings and buy a commodity to hold for 100 years, and you thought about it, would you buy soybeans or corn or oil or natural gas or lumber, coal, silver? Well, no, they're all awful, and you know why they're awful, because it's pretty obvious to you that 100 years ago it was harder to make those things than it is today. And if the price of oil goes to $1,000 a barrel, we're going to frack it, triple frack it, hyper frack it, and we'll drive the price of oil down. Same with gold. There's been hyperinflation in gold multiple times. You know, the California 49ers found gold. We created so much gold that we crashed the economy of Europe. Every other commodity is going to actually explode in supply with technology and with price. That makes them all garbage investments for a long-term investor. They're in fact the worst possible investments as a long-term store of value. The king of them, gold, still underperforms the S&P index by a factor of 2 or more. So there's only one commodity in the history of the human race that wasn't a garbage investment. The one commodity is Bitcoin, right? A digital commodity.
And there you have it, another episode of MSTR Today. And here's my receipt from yesterday. Not my best buy ever by a long shot. Bought earlier in the morning, and I got a $279 price point. Ouch. That gave me a 0.757 share of MSTR. And I will keep buying every single trading day of 2025 and be sharing with you my entire portfolio every single Sunday, where it stands, where it's going, et cetera, et cetera. I'm keeping the faith. I truly believe the path we're on is inevitable. It may not feel that way sometimes, but there's a reason why the strong diamond hands survive and the weak lettuce paper hands never see the kind of profits they could otherwise have seen. So I'm keeping the faith. I believe it's inevitable. I'm surrounding myself with the right people. And I believe it when Michael Saylor says, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.